Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Chasing 70 Degrees. My name is Travis and it has been absolutely beautiful this weekend, and so I figured what I would do is go ahead and take advantage of this great weather and try to get my Oracle Oculus Bi-LED headlights installed. Now, to be clear, I am not sponsored. I went ahead and paid for these on my own, and these are probably going to set you back around $550+, right? So this is definitely one of the more expensive upgrades that I've done. But as a Jeep owner, sort of driving around and seeing all the other Jeep owners who either have the Mopar LED lights installed or some version of an Oculus style halo type light. And in fact, just today I drove by a guy in a green Jeep who had green halos in his LED headlights. So I'm running just a stock halogen light in my 2020 Jeep Wrangler JL Unlimited Sport. And so these are the headlight replacements for that. These are the 9-inch headlights. And let's go ahead and open this up and see what we've got in here. Again, there's really not much in the package. You have the cable harness, right? And this is going to be important, but the purpose of this is to allow you to have the halo light running when you turn the vehicle on. And so we're going to be plugging this into one of the, I believe it's a 20 amp fuse, and I want to say it's F52 is the fuse that we're going to be using. And so again, this is the cable harness that we're going to use in order to make that happen. And you can see there's all kinds of little parts, and I'm going to be giving you a close-up of everything here, in addition to the tools that I'm going to be using for this installation, because this is, again, taking me a little bit out of my comfort zone. I'm terrified of anything that has to do with dealing with the wiring, the power, the fuse box, things like that. So not a huge fan of doing that. So if you stick through the whole video, maybe you'll see my fuse box spontaneously combust. Always a possibility. But Oracle has made it super, super easy here. And we've got this kit right here. Let me go ahead and show you the actual headlights themselves. Now they come with sort of this plastic wrap on the front, and I'm actually going to be leaving this on until I'm 100% finished. When I did my Oracle black smoke tail lights, you want to leave this on because you don't know if you're going to, maybe you're going to bump into it with a ratchet or something, or a screwdriver while you're trying to get your install done. So I'm going to leave that on here. And these are exceptionally light. I'm kind of surprised at how light these are. Again, not very heavy at all. We've got 2 cables that are going to be coming out the back of each of the lights. Now, the first connector is going to be the connector that you're going to use to simply plug and play with the factory Jeep connector that's going to be there for the headlight. Now, this other sort of very thin and longer cable, this is the cable that's going to pair up with this harness kit right here. And we're going to connect this in, and I'll show you again. I'm going to give you great detail on what I'm doing in here under the hood. But it's going to connect in with this harness kit because the entire premise and purpose of this harness kit is to give you that daytime, again, as soon as I turn the vehicle on, the halo light around the Oculus Bi-LED headlight, that is going to come on as soon as I power on. Well, I'm doing a key thing, it's a push button. So, but as soon as you power on your Jeep, that halo light is going to light up. And that's what the harness kit and these longer cables are going to accomplish for us. So if you didn't want that halo light, you could simply ignore connecting these up. But again, I think that's one of the great features of this light, is it gives you that sort of daytime running halo when you just power the vehicle on and you don't have to turn the lights all the way on. Again, if I didn't hook this up, you could still turn the light switch on and you're going to get the lights, or they're going to work just fine. And so again, that is the Oracle Bi-LED Oculus headlight. And so we've got both of them here. We've got the harness, and that's pretty much all that comes in the kit. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go ahead and do a close-up of the tools that you're going to need. But number one, right out of the gate, and this was a lesson learned when I was working with the tail lights, is how filthy your hands are going to get. So what we've got here is I've got some black gloves. So you're definitely going to see my hands inside these gloves when I'm under the hood, because we've got to remove the grill, we've got to remove the headlights. We're going to be fishing cables, underneath a radiator cover, as well as along the side of the Jeep. And so that's what these are going to help me prevent, and that's getting grease and grime all over my hands. So let me bring you in for a close-up, and let's take a look at each of the tools that I'm going to be using to accomplish the installation today. All right, so as previously mentioned, here are the sort of black plastic mechanic gloves that you typically see in a lot of the mechanic shops. I'm going to be using those to protect my hands. We're going to need a crimper, right? And I've had this for, this tool's got to be 20 years old. I've had this thing laying around and used to use it for Ethernet cabling and stuff like that. But today we're going to be using it as a crimper on that cable harness that we're then going to plug into our fuse box. I've got my Trisalto sort of plastic trim removal kit, and this is going to help me remove, you'll see we've got these little tabs that we need to remove, 6 of them on the 2020 Jeep Wrangler JL, so that we can get the front grille of the vehicle off. Now these Lexavons, and I'll pull this into frame here, this Lexavon, these are sort of like little adapter driver kits. You've got a 3/8 inch, a 1/2 inch, and a 1/4 inch. And what it'll allow me to do is to use my Ryobi drill with a 10 millimeter socket. And so 10 millimeters is going to be a popular measurement in this video, because not only am I going to need this 10 millimeter socket to remove the old headlights, put the new Oracle Oculus Bi-LED headlights in, I'm also going to be using a 10 millimeter wrench in order to get the grounding post bolt off, so that I can go ahead and affix that cabling harness for those daytime halo, daytime halo light effect. And so you can see I just went ahead and popped the ratchet 10 millimeter, and I can't do this with one hand. Again, I'm holding the camera with one hand. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and plug this in here because it's a 1/4 inch. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to put it into the Ryobi. Now, this is plan B, and that is I'm going to go ahead and use, I think it's a cobalt ratchet and the 10 millimeter screw bit here that I'm going to use, as well as an extender. And so this is kind of plan B. If the Ryobi can't get the job done, we're going to go ahead and use this for a little more power. And then here again is just another cobalt 10 millimeter wrench, and that's what I'm going to be using for the grounding post in order to get the screw off, so I can connect my cable harness up. And then finally, I've got some of these, you can pick these up at Home Depot or Lowe's, but some cheap cable ties, because there's going to be that harness, that cable harness that I'm going to be running for those daytime halo lights. It's going to run all the way along the front of the Jeep from headlight to headlight, and then track along the what would be the passenger side of the Jeep. So down the side of the passenger side of the Jeep, and I've got to get down by the fuse box. So I'm going to have some of these cable ties ready to go, just in case I need to make sure that the installation looks clean and that nothing is flopping around. All right, well, let's go ahead and glove up, and let's get out there, and let's go ahead and get the 6 plastic pins removed so that we can get the front grille removed from the Jeep. All right, so I've got the hood of the Jeep opened up, and you can see these are the pins, these little plastic pins that I'm talking about. And you can, I don't think you want to use your fingernails to try to pop that up, but there's one here, there's one here, there's one right here, and then there's 3 that match up with these 3 just on the opposite side of the grill. And so you'll notice, and you can actually see if you take a close look there, there's like a little groove underneath there, and that is where this Trisalto tool is going to come in very handy. So you just kind of get underneath it and you pull it up just a little bit here like that. Now, the mistake I made the first time was I thought that once that part is up, you just go ahead and you start pulling on it. The problem is that what you're trying to do is not do that, right? And so what you don't want to have happen is for the whole pin to be removed. And so that's why you're going to try to get underneath the larger pin and you're going to try to pull them both up at one time. And so let me kind of bring this in for a little closer look at the camera. So you want both of these to come up at the same time. And again, what I had done before, the first time I did it, was I popped this out and then that was still in there. But you've got to have both of these guys have got to be out in order for you to be able to get that grill off. All right, well now is when we're going to go ahead and do that, the miraculous fast forwarding as I remove the other 5 clips. So let's go ahead and knock that out. All right, so now that we've got those 6 pins removed from the top of the grill, you can see that the grill, it kind of just, kind of slides forward. And this is where the first time I removed my grill, in order to put my grill insert here that has the blue line flag, this is where I kind of struggled. And again, probably going to end up struggling again here because my biggest fear is that I'm going to pull too hard or I'm going to snap this thing in half. But there are some clips that are down here and you can't really see them, but you're just supposed to pull on the hood and it should just pop out just kind of like that. And I'm trying to be as gentle as I can here. And this is where those gloves are going to come in handy. And yeah, I'm looking down here underneath and I'm going to actually give you a close-up of this in just a second. There's only one more clip there that seems to be holding out on me. And there it is right there. And so here's my the grill insert I had. And let me flip this around so that you can see the clips that actually go into the vehicle, and it's these units right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so those are what's really kind of holding it in once the plastic screws are removed from the top. And so as you can see, these are the 6 clips, and it's these, and it's kind of bringing back some bad memories here from the Oracle taillight install. It's these plastic clips that have like shark teeth on them that are in there. So that is what is holding those on as well. So let me go ahead and let's get the grill out of the way here. I'll go ahead and take off the tag for the grill, and we'll set this aside somewhere. All right, so here we are at the factory halogen headlights now, right? We've got the grill has been removed and the headlights have been exposed, and you're going to see we've got 3 10mm screws here. There's one here, there's one here, and there's one right down here. And so let's go ahead and see if again, this is a 12-volt Ryobi. I'm hoping that it's got enough power to get those out of there. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And this is where I may have to go to, and it doesn't look like it's going to do anything for me there. So let me swap out and let's grab the ratchet. We've got the ratchet, the extender, and the socket here. I'm just going to grab again, so you've got the 10mm socket. I'm using an extender to give me some room to work here. And then again, I think it's just a 1/4 inch. There we go. Yeah, that Ryobi, that was a Home Depot special. All right, so let's go ahead and get these removed. All right, so now that we have the screws removed, you can see it just kind of like falls down there. And this is actually really light as well. So all we're going to be doing is removing the harness here from the back. There's this little black tab that we should be able to push down on, and that's it, right? And so you can see that black tab comes right off there, exposing sort of the headlight cavity area here. And so this is what we're going to be plugging the Oracle Oculus Bi-LED headlamp into. And so let's go ahead and remove the headlight on the passenger side now. All right, so now with all of the screws removed here, again, this should just simply pop right out, and it does. And again, this is a little tougher to see. They actually have the cable in here wrapped behind, there's a bar. there's like this little metal bar and it's wrapped behind that. There's not a lot of room, so I'm going to go ahead and drop this out, and that is got to be the easiest disconnection ever. And you can hopefully see that little bar that's in here. In fact, let me see if I can get that down underneath. There we go. So now we've got a little more slack to work with here. And again, this is just going to be the connector for that Oracle Oculus Bi-LED headlight. It's going to go right into the factory connector right here. And now what we're going to do, and again, I'm not going to install the lights now, because now is when we're going to grab that little wiring harness that's going to give me that daytime halo running light when I turn the engine on. So let's go ahead, and we're going to have to fish that through here. We're going to be, part of it's going to come here, and then it's going to fish through. I'll probably go up in behind here somehow, behind the battery, up over here toward the fuse box. And so let's knock that out right now. All right, so here we are with the cabling harness, and you can see we've got this little red wire that's going to go inside of a connector that we have that's part of the kit. And here's the grounding wire right here that we're going to be hooking up to that 10 millimeter post and screw over, I should say 10 millimeter screw over there, over by the fuse box. Now, you'll notice that when you look at this, one end is really short, right? And then you've got this really, really long end. And so the way that it would work is the short end is going to be on the passenger side, right? The long end is what we're going to run and fish under here. And so that's the part that we're actually going to go ahead and do first. We're going to bring this long end from over here, and we're going to bring it all the way along the front of the Jeep, and we're going to go right underneath this sort of radiator, this plastic radiator thing. And this is an opportunity, again, to go ahead and use some tie wraps maybe for a nice clean install. So I'm just going to go ahead, we'll bring the entire cabling unit over here, and I'm going to go ahead and fish this connector through. And you just come underneath this plastic sort of radiator protector, shield, if you will, and then it's going to drop. Let's make sure we've got plenty of slack here. And then this is going to drop right down in here, and we're going to drop that right next to the light. And so I'm using my Joby Gorilla Pod here, and let me go ahead and bring that down so that you can see what that's going to look like. And so here is the cable, right? And again, this is for that daytime halo feature. And then we've got the factory connector right here, the Jeep factory connector, and that's where the Oculus headlight's going to plug into as well. And so I just simply went along this area right here, and I can tell already that the gloves are paying huge dividends, right? Because this is kind of nasty down in here. Now, you'll notice that we ended up over here on the passenger side, and this is where we have sort of the remainder of the cable, and it kind of fell down there underneath the Jeep. But there is the red cable that we're going to be connecting into a sort of a butt connector into a fuse. And we're going to begin using F52, and I'll give you a close-up and show you where that's at. And then we've got that little circular cable there, and that's going to connect to the ground. And so what I'm going to do now is, let's go ahead and set this up, and I'm going to go ahead and fish this along the passenger side here, and we're going to come out right down there by the fuse box. So let me go ahead and adjust the Joby Pod, and we'll take a look at how I'm going to go ahead and run that portion of the cable through. All right, so here I am with the ground, as well as the, you can think of it as like the hot wire, and I'm going to bring that through here, and we're going to try to fish that along the bottom, or I should say the side of the Jeep here, and try to keep this as clean looking as we can. And so I'm going to go underneath this plastic module right here, kind of bring that under. Let's fish that through. And it's interesting because this is kind of like this, it's like a dam unit of some sort, but again, it folds back a little bit, and then I can kind of go underneath it, and that's going to kind of keep that cable nice and tightly aligned right there. And so you can see here we do have a bit of slack. I'm going to keep the cable coming, and there we go. And so we should be good right there. And so now this leads us up to the portion of the install where I have a 10 millimeter ground screw right here in sort of a ground setup. And I can connect this to that ground. And so what I'm going to do right now, though, is now that I have this connected all the way up to here, all right, and the cables kind of run, and it actually does look pretty nice and neat. And I may be peeling this back a little bit if possible to see what's going to happen, because we're going to have to connect that butt connector thing into, or this cable here, this red hot wire into that. And there's some silver stuff on here that I'm debating whether or not that's actually supposed to be on there. But we'll find out here shortly. All right, so let's go ahead and get that portion knocked out. All right, so here we are looking at the inside cover panel of the fuse box for the Jeep. Now, we said we were going to use J52, which is going to be that one right there. In fact, let me see if I can use this, the actual cable here. It's going to be this one right there is J52. We're going to see what that looks like in the actual fuse box of the Jeep here in just a second. But there's also a comment, and this is kind of funny, when you look at, I'm sorry, I said J, I meant F. F52, and where did that go? All right, let's see where it lists it out here. And I believe that it says, yeah, so here it is right here. It says cigar lighter. And hopefully you can see that. So F52 is a cigar lighter. And if I flip the panel again around this way, when we're looking at the fuses, there's going to be these two larger right here, this one. And I think those are K14 and K15, and these are silver, and we'll be able to see those. And then F52 is right there. So it's going to be the second fuse back. And let's go ahead and get out there and do the portion that I am not looking forward to. All right, so here we are inside the fuse box again. You can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sort of metal posts here. And this cover would typically just sit right there. So I've just lifted the cover up, removed the cover, and there's an included fuse puller. It's yellow. It's going to be sitting right up here. And so I had to actually use a screwdriver to kind of push down in here to get that the fuse remover loosened up so that I could actually grab it and get it off of there. So it was definitely securely connected in there. Now, the other thing I did was we've got these two sort of high power fuses that are going to sit, I think it's K14 and 15 we looked at. So one sits here and one sits here. And so I've just kind of removed those so that I can see not only what I'm doing, but hopefully you can see as well. And so if that is K14 and 15 respectively in these slots right here, this is the 20 amp fuse that we're looking for. It's a yellow 20 amp fuse, and that is F52. And remember, according to the layout here, that F52 is sort of the second fuse in. We've got F53 is blank, and it's for the cigar lighter. And I don't believe I have a cigar lighter if it's different from a cigarette lighter. And so what we're going to do now is we can go ahead and pop that fuse out using this fuse remover. And hopefully it's easier to get the fuse out than it was to get the fuse remover out. And okay, so there is the 20 amp fuse, right? The yellow 20 amp fuse. And so then what we're going to do is on the two slots closest to the prong there, we're going to go ahead and insert this 20 amp fuse. And this connection is really, really tight. So let's see if I can work that in there. And there we go. And boy, you got to put a lot of pressure on that 20 amp fuse to get it in there. Now, there's also an included 5 amp fuse. and that's going to go, it's an orange fuse. And now the orange fuse, this is the one that came with the Oracle Oculus Bi-LED headlights. And so we're going to do the same thing, and I'm going to put some significant pressure here to get that to go in. And man, that does not want to go in there. And we've got it lined up properly here. So let me see, I got to pull it back at a better angle. Oh man. All right, so this is going to be very interesting because I actually had to get a pair of channel locks and bring those over here and squeeze down to get this orange 5 amp fuse to go in. It would just simply not go all the way in, but it is definitely all the way in there now. And so now what we're going to do is, again, this is where I start to get a little nervous here. I noticed that there's this silver material that I've been trying to peel off, and it won't come off, and it's not clear if that is supposed to be there or not. And so I think what I'm going to do, again, and if you're probably screaming right now at the video saying, whatever you do, don't cut off the silver end, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Hopefully this is still sharp enough here. These are kind of old. There we go. All right, so that's a little bit better there. And again, it was like this silverish material. It didn't really look like it belonged there. And I could even maybe thread a little bit off of here, a little bit additional off of there, hopefully not breaking it. And let's go ahead and give that, looks like one more tug is going to be sufficient. Whoops. There we go. All right, so now, again, I'm much happier with this because we have, as you can see, we have quite a bit of wire there. And so now this is where we're going to run the wire into this butt connector right here, and then I'm going to clamp that down. And so I'm going to get that jammed in there as best I can. Let's make sure we're getting that in there. All right, so that is definitely in there. And then here is where we're going to clamp this down with these clamps and try to hopefully get a really nice solid connection on there. And again, let me give this a little, yeah, it's not clear if that is like really well on there or not. I definitely want to clamp that down good so this is not moving around. All right, so yeah, that feels much better. Okay, and what I also did, and I had to use a razor blade tool, was I kind of peeled back the sheath here for these two wires, the red and the black wire. I cut the sheath back probably a good 4 inches maybe, or not 4 inches, maybe 3 inches, because what I'm going to do now is this cable here that I crimped, this would come back in like this, and that is going to go right into the same F52 fuse, just like that I was using before. And I've got it here kind of so it's going to thread out conveniently. And take a look at this. I've got enough lead here on the ground post, the ground wire that's going to connect to the post, so I should be able to do that. Now, I'm again hoping that these two fuses that got put in there, the 20 amp went in fine, the 5 amp, that was a nightmare. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my fuse remover back into its location, and that's where it originally sat, right? Again, I had to put a little screwdriver in here and then kind of pry it with a screwdriver and pull it up. It is definitely sealed in there. And so this would go right back, and let me make sure that should be threaded through so that it's not going to be in the way. And there we go. All right, so the fuse box cover, I got the gloves on, right? So I can sit here and rub the fuse box cover. Fuse box cover's in there. I've crimped everything. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? And that would have been interesting. So let's pop the fuse box cover back off. And let's not forget the two high-powered K14 and K15 fuses. Yeah, that would have been interesting. Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and put this on. So always replace all the fuses you remove so that everyone can see the video that you're making. And actually, let me pull that to the side a little bit. Make sure that that sits down. I'm going to want that coming out right through that groove right there. All right, so there we go. And hold on, I'm not happy with that. It should be coming back further this way, I believe. All right, there we go. There it is. All right, so fuse box cover back in there, right? We've got the battery, plastic red thing here for the positive covered. Now, the last thing that I should need to do before I turn the vehicle back on is I'm going to go ahead and take I was going to use a wrench, but I can get in here with a socket and my ratchet, and it just kind of pushes up against that a little bit. So we should be able to, and that's actually going the wrong way, I think. And let's go ahead and take this ground bolt off here, 10 millimeter socket, and I should be able to get it to where I can hand turn it. And let's see if we're actually there. No, not yet. All right, so we'll keep working it here. All right, so I'm confident that this is going to work here. So this is just like a really big screw here, and I finally got it loosened with my hand. And so let's go ahead now, and hopefully I don't drop this into the engine. All right, so there it is. So that's the screw. I'm going to go ahead and attach my little grounding cable, and then we're going to put this guy back on. All right, so double thumbs up, not that difficult. However, now comes the true test. We're going to shut the hood, we're going to fire the Jeep up, and let's find out if my fuse handiwork actually did what it was supposed to do. Let's go ahead and wrap up this install. All right, so now it is time to go ahead and install the Oracle Oculus Bi-LED headlights. And again, I'm going to set this down, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to leave the plastic on there, right? Because you can see I'm kind of setting it down here on the bumper, and the reason for that is we're going to go ahead and connect the headlights up, and you can see there's this little sort of tab here on the top, kind of a guide type thing that I don't believe would work going in that side, and so we're going to slide that right in there, make a really nice connection. Right? And so we've got a nice solid connection there. And so then what that leaves is sort of the daytime running light connector to be hooked up. And so we're going to go ahead and line up. There's just simply two sort of posts in here, and we'll line that up. And there's also, it's going to be probably impossible to see. There's like a little nub right here down on the bottom, and there's a groove here on the bottom so that you can actually, it lines up for you. And you can get that on there. And then this little spinner, right, this kind of clasp here, this is just going to simply ensure that this cable does not come unhooked or doesn't disconnect. All right, and so there we go. And final note here, you'll notice it says on the light, and I'm hoping that you're going to be able to see this, there's sort of this letter L here, meaning left, and left being if you were sitting in the driver's seat of the car, the left-hand side would be the driver's side. And this is also, as we go to set this back in here, there's also right here, you'll notice there's the screw hole, but then there's this other hole because there's a little plastic guide post right up in here that's going to allow us. And there's the same thing down here on the bottom as well. So let's go ahead and match these up into the guide posts. There we go. All right, and so there is the first Oracle Oculus headlight. And now let's go ahead, let's grab the 3 screws, right? These 3 10 millimeter screws that we had, and we're going to go ahead and put these back in. Let me grab my ratchet and socket. And now we're going to do exactly the opposite of what we did initially, which is to get these screwed back in. All right, so let's go ahead and fast forward through this part right here and get to the passenger side headlight. All right, so there is the driver's side Oracle Oculus Bi-LED headlamp. Now let's go ahead and transition over to the passenger side and take a look at the connections we're going to need to make over there. All right, so here we are on the passenger side. And again, it's going to be very straightforward. You can see that on the back side here, there's this little sort of tab of sorts that's going to go right up on top. And there's two guides on the side as well, two sort of plastic guides on the side that are going to allow me to, and you can actually feel this little black tab. It'll click, and I could definitely feel that both times that I did it. And so now the remaining cable is going to be connected into, again, this is for that daytime running light feature. And as you can see here, again, there's a very small nub on the bottom there and a groove on the bottom here. And it's going to slide right in there. And then the little sort of cap spinner type device here, we're going to use that to spin on here to hold this into place to make sure that at some point that does not come undone. And I should also mention that there's a sort of an easy way to adjust the headlamp, and you can see here this would allow you to adjust the headlamp once we get it put in here. And so let me go ahead, and we've got some extra cabling here, that larger part there, and so we're going to tuck that in. All right, and then let's go ahead and sit this back. And again, very important, you know, leaving that plastic wrapping on, and now we're going to find those guides on the top and the bottom, right? And hopefully you're able to see that. There's a guide here, and there's a guide right there. No guide up here on the top left, but we've got these two guides on this side, and that's enough to get that in there. Let's grab our ratchet and one of these 10mm screws, and let's go ahead and secure this guy back into the Jeep a little bit. That way nothing falls out here. All right, so now that we have both of the Oracle Oculus Bi-LED headlamps installed, we've got them secured in there. Let's go ahead and take a look here, and you can see that those look much nicer than those factory halogen lights that were in there. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a fast forward sequence here of me doing my best attempt at reinstalling my grill along with my US blue stripe flag. So let's get that installed. All right, so just to start out with, you can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's 6 connector pins. And we're gonna line up the bottom part, and first let me make sure that my blue line US flag is in there. And then you just kind of line those pins up, and we're gonna apply some pressure to put those back in. And that's it. All right, so those are in there good. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our 6 plastic pins, and those are going to get dropped back down into, and let's make sure this is, there we go. Make sure that's secure. So we'll start on this side here. And again, you want to remove the pin almost all the way before you drop it in, and then you're going to push down, and they are kind of grooved. All right, so we've got the grill reattached, and now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and shut the hood, and let's turn on the Jeep and see what those headlights look like. All right, well, it is now time for the moment of truth. I almost forgot to put the two high-powered fuses back into the fuse box in K14 and 15. I had a little issue getting the 5 amp fuse to actually seat inside of the sort of the fuse splitter that then was ultimately plugged right back in to F52 for the cigarette lighter. So I'm in the cab of the car. I'm now going to turn the vehicle on and let's see if I get the halo running lights, if I've actually got that hooked up and ready to go and I did it properly. If not, chances are you might see my tears through the windshield. So here we go, and hopefully there's no sparks or fire that is going to take place. And so I've just turned the car on, and again, I'm sitting in the car, so I can't actually see if those both came on. So I'm actually going to step out of the car and let's take a look here. All right, so I just got out and looked, and I cannot tell you how happy I am that both of the halo lights came on for both of my Oracle Oculus Bi-LED headlamps. Let's go ahead and turn the car off right now. And let's go back into the garage and let's close out this install. First, taking a look at a comparison, I'm going to now use the Oracle LED headlights at nighttime against my garage, just like I did, to give you a side-by-side comparison of what the stock halogen lights look like against the Oracle Oculus Bi-LED headlamps. All right, so here we are sitting in the 2020 Jeep Wrangler JL Unlimited Sport, and I'm actually parked in front of my house here, and I've got all the lights out. There is some residual light from the neighbors, but I think you'll still get the idea. I wanted to go ahead and make sure that we had a really good comparison so that we could look at the difference between the stock halogen lights that are in the Jeep and the Oracle Bi-LED headlights that I'm going to be installing here tomorrow. And so right now we've got no light there. And so this would be, and let me go ahead and turn off the fog lights. So there are the regular lights. And interestingly, when I purchased the vehicle from the dealer, they had adjusted the headlights because there is a lift kit on the Jeep. I'm sure you've seen in the photos and in the videos I've been doing, the Jeep is definitely lifted with larger tires. But I get flashed all the time for people thinking that my high beams are on when it's not. It's simply these lights here, right? And so I wanted to give you a good visual of what the low beams look like on the stock halogen 2020 Jeep Wrangler lights look like. And so now let me go ahead and turn on the high beams. And you can see the high beams are actually pretty high. I mean, those are coming up and I'm pretty much level where I'm at right now. So those do seem pretty high. They certainly do not seem as high as the low beams. And by height, I mean kind of where they're at. But I guess they do look like they are pretty high there. So maybe that's why. So again, there are the high beams. Let's leave those on for a few seconds. Again, we want to make sure that we've got some good comparison points when we take a look at those Oracle Bi-LED headlights. And finally, again, one last time, there are the low beams on the stock halogen headlights. And that is what it looks like with just simply the parking lights that are on. And there it is completely sort of blacked out. So again, there's my regular halogen low beam lights, and those are the high beams right there. So now let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and do the install here on the Oracle Bi-LED headlights, and then we're going to do another comparison tomorrow night and see what those look like once they're installed. All right, let's go ahead and knock that out. All right, so here we are for the final test of the Oracle Oculus Bi-LED headlamps. So I got the install done today, and now we're going to go ahead and do a comparison here. You've just taken a look at what the stock Jeep 2020 Wrangler JL Unlimited Sport headlights look like, those halogen lights. Now we're going to take a look at the LEDs. You can already see that I have the halo lights, the running lights on, and those are still working, so good news there. No fires in the fuse box yet. And so those have actually kind of lit the garage up. So let's go ahead now and let's put on the low beams. And if you take a look at that, you can definitely tell a difference with respect to what the low beams look like here. And I'm going to back up just a little bit. And what I really like is if you look at the top of the light, or the height of the light, it's definitely got a nice clear sort of a cutoff from left to right. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the high beams. And you can see right there that the high beams are actually pretty bright as well, and they do rise up a little bit above. And again, there's that the lamp flipping up, and then now we have it down, right? So there's the low beams for the Oracle Oculus Bi-LEDs. Here's the high beam for the Oracle Oculus Bi-LEDs. And I've got to tell you, I was actually kind of went out and drove around a little bit this evening just to see what the lights would look like. And I can tell you right now that these definitely light the street up much, much nicer and much better than the stock halogen lights. All right, well, that does it for the comparison. Let's go ahead, go back into the garage and finish up this review. All right, well, that is going to do it for this installation. Again, I am super, super impressed with how easy the installation was. Again, the two challenges that I ran into, I don't want to say problems, but the challenges that I ran into were that little 5-amp fuse. Had to use some channel locks to actually get that guy all the way seated in there. The 20-amp fuse went right in with no problems. And then I used a razor blade tool, which I don't actually have here with me, and I just cut the sheathing a little bit on the red and the black cable, right? The positive cable that was going to go into the fuse box, as well as the ground cable, and I kind of very carefully cut that back so that I would have some slack, and I could run the red cable in front of the fuse box over to where those 7 posts were at, and then bring it up through the fuse box like that. Again, always remember to replace all of the fuses you remove when you're making your video and trying to make sure that you have enough space to move around in there and you can see what you're doing. But again, I love these lights already. Absolutely phenomenal. A definite upgrade and a huge improvement from the stock halogen headlights. All right, I really appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully you're going to get a set of these at some point, or another set of LED lights. And that's it. That's all I've got for this video. So best of luck to you out there, and enjoy the chase.